Hi everyone, David Pearson, Principal of the Ellington Middle School here. I thought I'd create this video to help parents and actually everyone in our community understand some of the changes coming up here at the middle school as we go from traditional parent conferences to student-led conferences. By now, you probably have been looking at your calendar and knowing that in December, on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of December, we have our conferences, middle school conferences, quickly approaching. Typically what would happen is that if we were following our traditional conference model, report cards would be sent home, and then you as parents would begin to complete conference forms, and you would get to pick a format. We've in recent years offered, besides in-person ones, email, phone conferences, and actually meeting with the entire team. You would then pick a preference of date and time in 10-minute slots. You'd actually pick what teachers you'd like to be in the room for this 10-minute conference. You'd return the form and wait for a confirmation, and then eventually attend a conference where parents and teachers would discuss the student's progress and sometimes, when needed, even plan next steps for improvement. It's been a conference model that, quite honestly, is very similar to the conference model that probably you and I both had years ago. It's been around for a long time, where you would wait for report cards to be produced. If you had questions, you would wait for that, and then you would then come to the conference asking questions and getting clarification or even expressing concerns. And that would be both for the teacher and the parent waiting for that conference time to come. And then, like I said earlier, you at one point, if you need be, brainstorm some ideas for some next steps. Some recent changes that happen here at our school and lots of other schools around the country is that we've changed the way we operate. For example, we've gone to a new teaming model here called Hands Up, where often we're talking about your children on a regular basis, and we're much more proactive, and if we find any concerns, we're contacting you earlier and inviting you in to be part of the problem solving long before waiting till the conference starts in December. Also, I know many of you get emails from your teachers about whether it's weekly or monthly, giving you updates. Many of you push reply, and there's a communication, ongoing communication. And then finally, between our website and now recent Twitter and Instagram accounts, you're getting regular kind of ongoing dialogue about how your kid is doing in school. As a result, we're seeing that these new systems are meeting some old practices, meaning that look at this chart. You'll see that this is the most recent conferences that we've had, and it's pretty typical of our conference participation now, is that less than half of you are actually coming on site to participate in our parent conference model. You see that 36% are actually coming to meet directly with family or with our teachers, and then you see there's the other email and phone conferencings at a smaller percentage where there is some off-site participation. But I think the big sort of thought here is that our parent conference is currently not attended by more than half of you. So knowing this, we decided, should we change? I mean, quite honestly, we're not getting complaints from you. We get your parent surveys that we do in June where you're very positive, often to that question of do you feel communicated with? 95% of you are saying, I agree or strongly agree with that this school communicates well with you. And then of course we ask ourselves, if it ain't broken, I mean really, there's that adage, should we really change something? But part of us then makes us pause and wonder if this is an opportunity, because we know that parent involvement equals student success. That's well researched. The more parents are involved with their kids' education, the more successful they are. So we see this almost as an opportunity more than a problem. So we as a school started to brainstorm, if we did something different, is there something better we could do differently? We began to brainstorm well over a year ago, looking at our conference model, and well, no. If we did something, we would want it to be an outgrowth of the current changes that we've done, some of the grading practices, some of the way we operate in our classrooms. We know that our classrooms are much more student-centered than maybe when you and I went to school where the teacher did most of the talking. Now the students are actually much more centered in the classroom. Could this model reflect that? We also believe our students are ready at this age to take more control and ownership in their own learning. We had lots of conversations as a school about the idea of we wanted deeper conversations as opposed to just a quick 10-minute conversation. And finally, we believe that you as parents still need sometimes to have that traditional adult-adult conversation. So with that kind of like brainstorming and thinking, we looked at some of our past successes. We said, what have we done well? And how can we learn from that? So we looked at our grading practice when we switched to a standards-based report card. We've looked at the idea of now being a one-on-one school. We're providing kids with Chromebooks or a workshop model or even this hands-up model that I mentioned earlier about the idea of meeting together and problem solving for kids. And we said, what did we learn from there that we can do in this review of a conference? And we basically, here's what we know, that if we are thoughtful and we take a year or two in advance and really do our research and come up with a model, it's more likely to be successful. I say successful because on those upper initiatives there, this month alone, we had 4 districts come look and try to replicate some of these earlier successes. So we said, okay, so what would a new conference model look like? And so we came up with these belief statements. We believe that student-led conferences provide students a voice in their own learning in which they can reflect upon their strengths and areas for growth, understand their own learning needs, and establish goals. We believe student-led conferences facilitate open communication between students, parents, and schools. And finally, we believe this process will empower students to be active and responsible in planning their educational goals and their futures. All right, so what does that mean? So what that means is the following. This is kind of like the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about. What is the difference between the traditional parent conference that maybe you and I experience versus these student-led conferences? First of all, let's talk about the who. You see there's one big difference. The big difference is that the student now will be present in this conversation besides parent guardians and the teacher advisor. So the teacher advisor has been working with your child almost on a weekly basis this last fall. And it's a good chance that your teacher advisor actually is one of your child's teachers. And so they know your your student pretty well. But they're there to help your student lead the conversation. But really your student is the person who's going to be facilitating and actually running this meeting. So what is this? Okay, it's a 20-minute meeting where students will do the following. I'm going to try and do this chronologically, let you know how these 20 minutes will be spent. First of all, the students, after the introduction and get everybody set in place, will highlight their strengths and areas of growth. They'll support those strengths and areas of growth by actually sharing real examples of their work through our new digital portfolios. About halfway through the conference, at one point, they'll open that conversation up and they'll encourage you as parents to start providing them with feedback, asking questions, being part of the discussion. And at the very end of this 20-minute conversation, we're going to begin the process of thinking about next steps. For example, what goals would they want to start setting when they meet with you again to talk about this in March when we have our March parent conferences? Because there'll be 2 parts of these conferences as there have been all along. Finally, you can see from the calendar that they're from the 9th to the 11th December. What's different about this one is that their teacher advisor will be sending you an email fairly soon, and you'll be invited to an individual appointment where you can sign up for your specific time. And then finally, where will they happen? More likely they're going to happen in your advisor's classroom, but for some advisors, the classroom may not be the most comfortable spot, so for a rare few, it might even be in the media center or someplace comfortable like that. So here's the timeline. By November 30th, you will be receiving an email from your child's advisor inviting you to sign up for the conference on a Google Docs format. Second, report cards will be sent home on December 2nd, which I believe is a Tuesday. And then on Monday, December 7th, I will send you some final reminders, but also I thought I would send you a last-minute conference tips for parents, like what are some good questions you might want to ask as your student is sharing their work. And then finally, the conferences will take place from the 9th through the 11th, as I said earlier. And an important piece we're going to ask you to do is fill out a survey. Let us know how the experience was, how we can, when we do this a second time, improve on the first time. And then also in that survey, if you still need an adult conversation, we're going to allow you to check a box, and we'll make sure that adult gives you a call or is in touch with you very quickly soon after the conference so that you still have that ability to have an adult-to-adult conversation. So here's some of the wrap up of this video, and that is we're hoping that we know that parent involvement, as I said earlier, is strongly linked to student success. We think that the old practice of actually having conferences the way they've been in the past, you've seen in this chart that only about 47% of you actually participate in a conference. And we're hoping that with this new model, that student-led conferences, which in some ways, as students are bragging about their academics, is very similar to them being on stage or on the field, where you're going to get a chance for them to show off, for you, the parent, the work they're doing in the classroom. So our goal now is not to have just half our families involved, but 100% of our families involved and being part of our student-led conferences. In the end, we think that it fills the goal of the idea of parent involvement, but also having your students be the center of their learning. We look forward to seeing you at our upcoming student-led conferences. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call here at school or send me an email, and I can answer any questions you have. Thanks very much. We'll see you in December.